to adopt the minutes of our regular meeting on June 28th.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we may proceed to the chair's report.
Good morning. Packed house this morning. Everyone's so interested in public housing. Thrilled to be with you this morning. Want to jump right into our work in what we have been up to. I woke up this morning and thought about a tagline, which is NYCHA still at work. So, you know, despite the challenges from Washington, et cetera, you know, we are still an operations agency. We are still providing housing to 1 in 14 New Yorkers, and that is what we aim to do. So as usual, we try and provide quick snapshots and update on where we are in the continued implementation of NextGen and the various components of it. Under our Operate initiative, we wanted to share with you that we have we extended flex ops, or flexible operations, which was our pilot to enable a longer day of service at our developments, while providing a series of staggered shifts to really try and provide to improve the quality of life for residents and offer better customer service. We learned a lot from the first demonstration pilot at 12 developments. We have added some developments. Some developments have come out of the pilot. And you know, what the data tells us is two things. One, our developments were cleaner, and our employees were happier. And we think that those are two really important indicators for how you begin to move the kind of and drive towards the kinds of improved performance that we want to see. So the new sites are sort of geographically sort of spread out, and we continue to work very closely with our colleagues at Local 237 and DC 37. And you know, it remains a pilot, and we hope that an additional 4 months or so of this work will give us the data to really take those learnings and see what it might mean for the future of our operations. So a really important and really important initiative for the agency. One thing that has been, I think, a constant throughout this administration is our commitment to innovation and technology, and we recognize what we are good at and what we're not. And so we went out and asked the tech industry to help think through some of our biggest operational challenges. It was a national or a regional competition in partnership with our colleagues at the Urban Tech Hub and Grand Central Tech. We had, I think, over 30 submissions from all manner of companies, and received and ultimately narrowed the actual finalist pool down to about 10. And their pitches ranged from things around energy conservation and sustainability, to streamlining project management, to increasing and enhancing resident services. Really interesting stuff, very tech sort of focused, and very innovative. And so we will work with our partners over the next couple of months to actually select a winning pilot and look to announce that winner during the upcoming New York Tech Week, I think in the fall, and then work to actually pilot the winning pilot at a development. And so a ton of work has gone into this on the legal side, on the operations side. It was a great room in that we had about I don't know, 20, 30 or so NYCHA operational folks. And I think the best question of the night was from the plumber in the back that screamed, like, what about the pipes? You know, and so it was a really kind of, you know, sort of taking the practical and marrying it to the innovative and really trying to see how we can, you know, improve and enhance some of our offerings through the use of innovative technology.
Chair, do you mind if I ask a question? So it occurs to me that there might be many good ideas, right? It seems like there's a lot that surfaced. Is there necessarily just one winner? Is it possible to?
That's a really good question. And we actually said that 3 companies will be selected, not just one. So excuse me. So 3 companies, and it will be a 3-month pilot, or however long it is determined that you need in order to determine what success is. But there was such overwhelming positive response to this that we think that this will be an annual thing, if not more than that. We also recognize our own capacity. So 3 winners will be selected, and it'll be something that we do on a regular basis. From the innovative to the yes, I don't know what the word would be, but this is, in all seriousness, again, as an operations agency, we spend a lot of time dealing with pests and rodents throughout our development, and it is both a public health concern for the city, as well as for our residents and our employees. And so we were pleased the general manager and team stood with the mayor earlier this month, and then he announced a $32 million investment in neighborhood rat reduction, or NRR. And this is, in all seriousness, a very important lever that the city is pushing to both invest in infrastructure, not only at NYCHA, but in other parts of the city, parks, transit, sanitation. But for NYCHA, it's amazing, given the age of some of our buildings, 60 years or older. Some of our buildings were constructed and they were never, their basements were never finished. So we actually have dirt basements in some instances. And we, through next generation operations, have actually made a very concerted effort to go and pave over and actually finish the construction of some of these buildings 60 years later. But it is at great cost. And so it's a really great initiative that the mayor has been able to provide these resources for us to really target that, more safer extermination practices, et cetera, et cetera. So a very important effort that, in concert with many of our city colleagues, we will be working on and really building into our daily operations. Continued work on the development front. Construction is set to begin at one of our first 100% affordable sites in downtown Brooklyn at the Ingersoll Whitman houses. This is in partnership with a number of different developer partners that will be building a senior housing development that will have a community center that is open to the public and will be serving NYCHA residents, and will also have programming. Really, I think the first in the city, or maybe the second in the city, that is focused on LGBT seniors. And so a really, I think, great asset that's being added to the community. And again, another 300 plus or 150 plus units of affordable housing in downtown Brooklyn, which we know has a great need. We also had the ribbon cutting of our 1,400 unit Ocean Bay Bayside RAD project. Commissioner Rogers was able to join us there, where we celebrated the beginning of work, or sort of acknowledgement of the ongoing work that's happening to really renovate the 1,400 units out in the Far Rockaway community. And the work continues, everything from new roofs, boilers, resiliency measures, as this development was also significantly impacted by Hurricane Sandy. So that work continues. And in that same vein, we also have released or expect to actually get RFPs back for another set of 100% affordable sites. You can see, again, kind of geographically dispersed throughout the city. I will note that we will be for the second time, NYCHA is actually building and supporting affordable housing in the middle of Manhattan, which is, as we know, a major effort given the cost structure of the various of those neighborhoods. Harborview is in sort of Chelsea West, Midtown West. And that is added to the site at the Chelsea Elliott House, which will also be 100% affordable. So really good work happening in our commitment to support the broader need for affordable housing in the city. In addition to that, we RFP for mostly scattered site buildings throughout the city that have been our unfunded units. You'll recall that as part of NextGen, we said that this remained a major operational drag on the authority to the tune of about $26 million a year. These were units that were built by the city and state that had no federal operating subsidy attached to it. Through a lot of work with our colleagues at HUD, have developed a strategy to work to bring these properties, deliver sort of Section 8 resources to these properties, in addition to leveraging some private equity through the low-income housing tax program or other, actually not LIHTC, but other private resources to renovate those buildings and ensure that they can remain affordable and have an ongoing source of operating subsidy. So there are about 4,000 units that are will be affected. Again, this falls under our PACT work, permanently affordability commitment together, which contains also a very robust resident engagement and communication effort, and resident rights, and those things will continue as this portfolio becomes part of that program as well. So for the last several meetings, we've talked a lot about the state of federal funding, the state of just the administration sort of stance towards public housing. So just a quick update on the state side, and I think this is just news again, but it's been confirmed that that the governor put in his 2017 executive budget $200 million for capital improvements at the New York City Housing Authority. And I think that is just fantastic. Again, the state stopped funding NYCHA in 1998. We saw $100 million in 2015. We now see $200 million here. I think the other thing that this should note is $200 million for specifically for boilers and elevators, I believe, so we were able, through a lot of hard work, to really focus the investment so that it's not smaller, while worthy projects, but more structural things that we know the authority needs. We continue to work with our colleagues at the Dormitory State of New York, which is where these funds actually go. They will not flow to NYCHA, but we will work in partnership with them to do everything that we can to facilitate this money getting into the developments as quickly as possible. On the federal side, there's been a lot of back and forth. I think the sort of punchline is, while we have seen the president's budget, if you'll recall, proposed some pretty drastic, significant cuts to the public housing program. The Congress ultimately approved a fiscal year 2017-2018 for the Public Housing Capital Fund of $347 million. Which it still represents a small cut, but not the cut that we had expected as part of the president's budget. So I'd like to declare victory that we were able to, through a variety of efforts, including the mayor and our congressional delegation, really impressing upon Congress the need to, to really reject the draconian cuts to the capital program, and but the fight continues to make sure that we don't see other cuts in other parts of our programs.
Right, but on the operating side, the cuts are still
Right, you'll remember that there were some sort of adjustments to the proration formula from the beginning of the year. That still stands. We've not gotten an updated letter, I believe. We may have, Karen may correct me when she does report. We haven't gotten an updated letter, so that's what we know still. And but indications from Congress and others is that it will be either sort of base case, sort of steady state, or a slight decrease. Again, not what was proposed as part of the president's budget. So the process that is what's happening in Washington is, well, I'm not the one to speak to what's happening in Washington, but in terms of the budget process is one of really being hammered out in Congress and through the THUD committee, which is where this program sits. A lot of work to support continued investment in these programs. A lot of great work. Again, another thing that was outlined in Next Gen was our commitment to develop youth leadership councils. We developed 10 councils around the city with the support of Capital One and others, including New York City Service. Fantastic work that these young people are doing in their communities, and it's something that we continue to support and expect to scale from the 10 this year to more in 2018. A lot of work around financial literacy and education, supported by some of our important community partners. I was just at Urban Upbound last week as part of City Hall in your borough in Queens. They're a partner at the Astoria houses, where we have a Jobs Plus site, where there's all sorts of services, really meeting residents where they are to connect them directly to opportunity, financial services and workshops being one of them. Food Business Pathways, this is, I think just one of the best initiatives and programs that we're doing, which is meeting people who are already running businesses in their homes, helping them to professionalize, do the licensure through the city, provide power coaching, and then actually support cash flowing businesses, ultimately improving the economic future for these families. I will also note that we created a child care pathways program as well. We just graduated the second class of graduates there, and this is something that has been supported by Citibank, as well as our partners at the Small Business Department of Small Business Services and others. Lots of really good summer programming happening, everything from City Bike hiring NYCHA residents, summer meals programs, free swimming lessons. These are things that provide that connectivity, right? We know we are more than the 2,600 buildings that we manage and operate. We are communities, and all of these things, I think, are an indication of our need to really turn out and partner with experts who provide these types of services while we can focus on our core business. As I mentioned, our mayor really led a number of mayors on the national conversation about the need for continued support of the Public Housing Capital Fund. And here's a list of those mayors that signed on to a letter that our mayor wrote to Secretary Carson. There was also a fair amount of work and conversations at the U.S. Conference of Mayors Conference, I think in Florida. And so this is very much on the mayor's agenda in talking to other cities. And you'll note that it's not just the big cities. And I think that's the important distinction here. The challenges that NYCHA faces are oftentimes, very similar to, Kansas City, et cetera. And there really is an opportunity for good collaboration there. More on sort of the work that we've been doing to provide education, work with partners, and providing education and support to our delegation as well. So, there's this remains a very important focus for us, but we are still at work. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions, and that is my report. Hearing no questions, GM, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, board.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to share with you some key performance indicators for the month of June 2016, and also relay the latest good news around our Section 8 lease housing program. These key performance indicators will focus around work orders, vacancies, and customer satisfaction. On the open work orders, as the end of June 2017, there were 147,631 open work orders. It was higher than the previous month, 145,378, but lower than a year ago, June 2016. The largest, in a review of the open work orders by failure code, the largest increases were around paint and extermination. These are triggered again by our continued efforts to get to do our public housing assessment system work, and we are continuing to look at the type of coordination and the type of reporting to continue to bring down these numbers. I can share with you this month is better than it was last month, but I think that this month was a higher month. There's vacations and other reasons that have historically led to high June figures, but the main failure class is around paint and extermination. A review of these same work orders in June of 2017, we opened 225,000 work orders and we closed 212,000. Just a reminder to the board that we do about 2.6 million work orders per year, with an average about 220,000 per month. On the emergency work orders for last month, we had a 7.4-hour response time. This is a response to emergency work orders, which we have classified as high priority items as heat and hot water, gas, elevator outages, etc. We have a 24-hour standard, and we continue to show progress in this area. Just a reminder that while a lot of this is driven, the higher numbers are driven through the winter months, our heat and hot water technicians, as we speak, are involved in summer overhaul, which we proved from last heating season proved that we brought down some numbers in this category of emergency work order response. On the maintenance work orders for the month of June, we have the average was 4.3 days. This is below our 7-day standard. It was a decrease from the previous month, and it was also a decrease from a year ago. This is an area which I think that the chair has made response time to a simple work order is a high priority. We continue, I think, to make advances in this area. The skilled trades continues to be a challenge for us. The service levels in June was 74.2 days. That's higher than the previous month. Our carpenter work order timeframes from 105 days to 108 days. However, there was a decrease from electricians, though. It improved from 57 days to 52 days during the same time period. When you look at the open and close, we opened 86,000 work orders in June. We closed 78,000 skilled trade work orders. We continue to look at things like logistics, planning, material management, business process reviews to get a handle on this critical area of our operations. Department turnaround time. This measures the average days to reoccupy a NYCHA apartment. Since it's been vacated, we have as we talked about before, we need to have a 30-day average. Year-to-date turnaround for June was 57.2 days, which was higher than last June. The year-to-date turnaround was higher in June due to a higher percentage of units that took over 100 days to reoccupy during the same period last year. For the year-to-date turnaround through June 2017, a total of 3,362 units were reoccupied, with 526 of these, about 16%, were taking over 100 days. So as we've discussed in the past, when you average the longer time with the 40 days or so, which we are doing the regular turnaround, it creates this 57-day turnaround average. The customer satisfaction measures the percentage of residents satisfied with the overall experience with the repair. This information is obtained from the results of the monthly robocalls conducted by the CCC, or Customer Contact Center, for closed work orders. In June 2017, 81.1% of our residents reported being satisfied with the repair work. The residents were asked a series of questions. In June, we made 2,998 calls. 2,727 residents responded to those calls. 2,211 of those felt they were satisfied, with the 94.4 of those who were answered saying that they were satisfied, creating the 81.1% average. I don't know if we have members of the leased housing team here, but for the second year in a row, first time since 2004, by the way, our leased housing department has been designated as a high performer. Section 8 Management Assessment Program high performer. So what this means is, or just an overview of our program, it's the largest in the nation. In 2016, we provided housing voucher assistance to over 86,000 households, over 200,000 folks. We paid almost $1 billion to private owners. We completed over 54,000 housing quality standard inspections, and we certified 76,000 households. These are important indicators because the high performer status tracks about 14 different indicators, things like selection from the waiting list and housing quality standards inspections, re-examination, etc. This is, again, the second consecutive year that we've received a high performer status. Prior to this, we had not received the status since 2004. It is the highest designation possible, and it exceeds all of the HUD standards for the program management. It's something that I think we at NYCHA should be very, very proud of. And that board completes the report of the general manager.
Questions?
No, I'll ask.
Okay.
We proceed. Number one?
We'll proceed with the general calendar.
Calendar,
So
yes.
whoever's
Item
up,
number one?
that's you.
Yes. Number one? One and two. Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Karen Caldwell, CFO of NYCHA. And item number one then request authorization to enter into a new lease with LIC 73 Owner LLC, extending the authority's occupancy of 24-02 49th Avenue, Long Island City, New York, from its current expiration date of January 31st, 2020, for a term of 30 years and 8 months. The authority will occupy 595,029 square feet of office space, comprising the entire first through fifth floors of the building. In order for the authority to obtain an exemption from real estate tax contributions, the building will be subjected to a condominium regime, and the authority will lease the condominium units created for these floors. The 30-year lease term was requested by the authority as an anticipated qualifying requirement for this tax exemption. As noted with regard to the companion resolution, the next item for the lease at Church Street, 90 Church Street, the subject Long Island City lease is integral to the authority's consolidation of its central offices. In connection with this consolidation, the authority will require construction, furniture, and the relocation of staff, not only at Long Island City, but also among the authority's other affected central office locations, including 1200 Waters Place in the Bronx, 1 Fordham Plaza in the Bronx, 470 Vanderbilt Avenue in Brooklyn, and the restoration of space vacated by the authority at 250 Broadway, New York, and 23 Ash Street in Brooklyn. The total value of the authority's construction and relocation is estimated to be $64,503,836, of which $54,860,230 represents work at Long Island City, and the remaining $9,643,606 represents work at NYCHA's other leased sites impacted by the consolidation that I spoke to above, which include, again, 1200 Water Street in the Bronx, 1 Fordham Plaza in the Bronx, 470 Vanderbilt in Brooklyn. Okay. NYCHA's obligation toward the construction and relocation is estimated to total $34,752,386. After all cash rebates, NYCHA's out-of-pocket expenditure would be $22,129,386. Authorization is sought to expend this amount at the authority's election, either as a one-time lump sum payment or as financed partly or entirely by the landlord as a special assessment payable over 10 years at an annual interest rate of 6%. The authority seeks authorization to expend an estimated $1,030,434,878 in leasing costs over the lease term. The lease term, again, is 30 years and 8 months. This amount includes the aforementioned special assessment in the maximum payment amount of $34,384,122 over the first 10 years of the lease term. That $22 million goes to $34 million if, in fact, we finance it over and have to pay it back over time as opposed to putting it up front. Thus, we recommend that the members of the board authorize the subject new lease covering 24-02 49th Avenue in Long Island City. Are there any questions?
So just
Go ahead,
so
sure.
people, because we talked a little bit about this, right? So the space that we currently occupy at 90 is, I'm sorry, at Long Island City is how many floors? I think 3 or 4 floors, and we're now taking 5.
Right, we're going to go 1 through 5.
Right, and that is to accommodate the people who will be relocated from here, from 90 into some spaces there. And I know it's related to the next
Right,
item.
that's what
I just want to make sure that everyone understands why the increased space there and costs as it relates.
So I was going to say that at the end, but let me just say it now. So currently the majority of our staff is here at the 250 building at 90 Church in Long Island City with ancillary groups at some of the locations in Brooklyn and the Bronx that I described. The rent here at 250, I mean, our lease is up, and I'm about to say that, but our lease is up in January of 20. So we literally have to either sign a new lease or leave the building. The space at 250 and the price it would rise to would be to 40% higher than the space we're consolidating into. So the lease at 250 really is unaffordable for us at the market rate. I think people are pretty familiar with what's going on here in the downtown area and how the Oculus and this is really becoming a very prime place for real estate development. And so as a result, again, with that rent increase there, we have an opportunity because, over the last few years, and you guys have seen how over the last 4 or 5 years, the staff at NYCHA has gotten smaller. And as a result, we really have a real opportunity at 90 Church Street to be able to utilize what is in fact, as again, 40% below market in some cases, space. And so, we are very fortunate to have that opportunity to be able to consolidate it down. But we were not able to consolidate everyone into 90 Church Street, which is then requiring us to build out further at Long Island City, which is still markedly cheaper than it would be if we were to remain at 250 Broadway. Okay. So the next item requests the authorization to enter into an amendment of the authority's lease with 90 Church Street Limited Partnership, extending the term of the authority's existing 90 Church Street lease from its current expiration date of August 31, 2024 for an additional term of 20 years and 4 months. The authority will occupy 403,625 square feet of office space comprising the entire 5th, 6th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th floors of the building, plus 18,639 rentable square feet of ancillary space. The authority seeks authorization to expend an estimated $411,584,441 in leasing costs over the extension term of 20 years and 4 months. The authority also seeks authorization to expend a maximum of $20,647,225 $225 for construction and furniture for the relocation of staff, together with a new lease covering the authority's Long Island City facility as detailed in the companion resolution that I just, the lease amendment at 90 Church Street permits the authority to right-size its leased office space, relinquishing our 250 Broadway leased premises in its entirety, thereby mitigating leasing expenditures for the foreseeable future. Thus, we recommend that the members of the board authorize the subject amendment to the 90 Church Street lease. Are there any questions?
So I don't know yet, because this is, you know, a pretty significant shift. Just to make sure everyone knows, right? This is the vacating of this space at 250. We did a little bit of digging in our history, and we think we've been in this building since the late 60s.
Mhm.
And so, you know, as CFO Caldwell said, this is both the status quo is not possible given the costs that are, required in the new lease structure, and we are forecasting and trying to save money now that would have to be expended at some point and be at a greater cost to the authority, while also making use of some being efficient in space consolidation. So there's been and will continue to be a fair amount of communication with our employees, our members of our respective unions, because there's a lot of stakeholders who need to be informed and brought along as this process. This is a 2-year-long process. Nothing is happening tomorrow. And so I say that to staff listening and watching as well. And so it'll be the job of this team as well as the executives to communicate out expected changes, et cetera, pending obviously approval. But there will have to be some changes given the reality that this lease is expiring. So it is a truly next generation of our workforce that we're talking about, and doing it in a smarter and more efficient way.
And just to underscore something that you said, Chair, if we were to not do anything, we talked about $20 million approximately that has to be expended in both locations. If we were to not do anything, our annual lease costs would go up by $16 million a year for the year 20 through 24, and it would go up by $31 million a year from 2025 and beyond. So it is really a very modest investment given what we would have to come up with over the longer period of time if we were to remain with the status quo. So again, if you take, $31 million for, what is essentially 15 years from 25 to 29, saving $31 million a year. And then again, for 20 to 24, saving $15 to $16 million a year. I mean, it is substantial. And I think it really helps the organization really downsize its central office costs and really take the money and really put it back into the developments, which is what is all of our goals.
You mentioned that some of the build out costs can either be paid with upfront or financed. Can you just comment on how you're thinking about that trade-off and what you're leaning toward?
Yeah, so it's 6% financing, which is a little bit above market, shall we say, if you had to go out and borrow the money, but it is typical for that to be folded into a lease. One of the things that we're going to try to do is to minimize our spend. So we are really trying to put pen to paper, take out contingency. So the real question is, what is the ultimate amount that we really have to spend? So our first line of defense is to try to see what we can do to shrink what we have to invest. Okay, but once we get down to what has to happen, which is what we're doing, then it's just going to be a matter of, a trade-off. I mean, if we do that, if we put the money up, then obviously we can't do something else. And so what are our cost benefits? So it can't be a decision made in isolation. It has to be made sort of in totality with our other, financial demands.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Board. I'm Carrie Giu, Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer. This morning, I'm going to present Board Resolutions numbers 3, 4, and 5. All three agreements are for staff augmentation services, and with all three amendments, I'm seeking authorization to increase the not-to-exceed amounts. In Board Resolution Number 3, I'm requesting authorization to amend the agreement with Trigen Technologies, Inc. to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $8,900,000. In Board Resolution Number 4, I am requesting authorization to amend the agreement with IT Trailblazers LLC to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $2,750,000. And in Board Resolution Number 5, I am requesting authorization to amend the agreement with IIT Inc. to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $7,350,000. The agreement with Trigen was originally authorized by the board in 2013 and amended by subsequent resolution to renew for one-year terms. The current term expires on December 4th, 2017. The agreement with IT Trailblazers was also originally authorized by the board in 2013 and amended by subsequent resolutions to renew for one-year terms. The current term expires on November 25th, 2017. And finally, the agreement with IIT was originally authorized by the board in 2013 and amended by subsequent resolution to renew for one-year terms. The current term expires on November 17th, 2017. By way of background, NYCHA has engaged these three vendors for staff augmentation services. Under the agreements, these vendors provide NYCHA with temporary employees on an as-needed basis when a specific skill set is required and existing authority staff cannot perform the work. The implementation of next generation NYCHA, as well as unanticipated business projects related to emerging regulatory requirements, has increased the need for additional specialized resources, particularly in technical and IT resources, professional services, and general administrative and clerical resources. These additional support needs have resulted in an increase in funding requirements. Therefore, I'm requesting your approval to fund the continued provision of services with Trigen, IT Trailblazers, and IIT for the fourth one-year renewal options for a total of $19 million. Any questions?
I have just a couple. So there was reference in the write-up to this is required, that the IT department is required to comply with annual staffing reduction requirements. And I just wasn't, can you explain what that is with these?
Well, in our effort to reduce our central office needs, we're really looking at which staff we need to retain on a full-time basis and which staff we can get the services for through temporary. IT is a field that's constantly moving and changing, and our needs are always different. So sometimes it makes more sense to get temporary IT service providers as well, instead of staffing full-time and retaining people over a longer period of time.
Okay, so these are internally generated requirements.
Yes.
Related to budget. Okay, and then can you just comment on how these three contracts are different in scope? It was a little hard to understand based on the writing.
So
what do they do?
Sure. So they're all three staffing services, and we just like to be able to tap into three different vendors depending on what our need is, depending on what availability they have. Sometimes we are able to refer employees to them, and then we are able to retain them that way. So it really is just so that we have the flexibility of having a larger pool to draw from.
I see. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Brian Clark, Senior Vice President of Operations for Property Management, and I'll be presenting item number 6 this morning. Item 6, we're requesting authorization to enter into an agreement with the New York State Industries for the Disabled to provide us uniforms for certain titles. It's a 3-year requirement contract. These are our blue uniforms, so these are worn by our caretakers, maintenance workers, heating plant technicians, exterminators, and let's see if I'm leaving out a title, stock workers and elevator mechanics. We provide the uniforms as per our collective bargaining agreement with the union, with Local 230, Local 237. New York State Industries for the Disabled is a preferred source. What that means is, pursuant to New York State Finance Law 162, the authority was approached by the Industries for the Disabled, and it's a preferred vendor status, and certain special providers under this statute we're allowed to negotiate directly with them, provided that the vendor provides certain social and economic goals. Any questions?
I guess I had one question, which is, so I understand it's our requirement to provide the uniforms, but taking a step back, do we think uniforms are necessary? As we look at every little, yeah, they are, okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chair.
But elaborate, please, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, we believe uniforms are important, certainly to identify staff for our customers, for our residents, as well as to create a certain presence and authority, and also for really kind of a team team approach. So we feel there's a lot of benefits to uniforms.
Thank you.
All right, so authorization is requested, enter into this agreement with New York State Industries for the Disabled for the purchase of male and female size winter and summer uniforms commencing on August 1st, 2017 and continuing through July 31st, 2020, or commencing on such other date as may be determined by the general manager or the senior vice president for operations, and continuing for 3 years thereafter for the not to exceed amount pursuant to the provisions of the New York State Finance Law, Section 162, preferred sources. There are no renewal options. Thank you.
Good morning again. I'm now presenting Board Resolution number 7 to request authorization to reject all bids for a requirement contract to provide for the purchase of bond paper for use by authority staff. Our recommendation is to reject all bids is due to revisions made in the specifications of this requirement contract. Initially, the RFQ released in the fall of 2016 called for bond paper with 100% recycled material content. After the submission of bids in response to that RFQ, we discovered that 100% recycled material content paper has been problematic in the authority's multifunction devices, causing numerous paper jams and other maintenance issues. As a result, we issued a new RFQ with a revised paper specification that meets the recommended specifications set by the multifunction device manufacturer. Therefore, I'm requesting your approval to reject all bids for the procurement of bond paper in the best interest of the authority. Thank
Are we coming back with another potential bid?
We actually issued that RFQ and it's below $1 million. The bids were submitted.
Great. Awesome.
Good morning again. Brian Clark, Senior Vice President of Operations for Property Management, and I'll be presenting items 8 and 9. Item 8, we are recommending rejecting all bids to this contract. It's a requirement contract for birch doors. These are doors that we use inside of our apartments. The reason why we are recommending rejecting this was based on a recommendation by our law department. There was a timing issue with the advertisement. It was available online, for vendors who are registered with us 1 day prior to it being available to all vendors in the city record. So we'll be bringing this back to the board after we rebid it. We have a contract in place now to cover us for these doors. And just to give you a little bit more information, these doors are what we use inside apartment units. So typically these are bedroom, bathroom, and closet doors. Any questions? Nope. Okay, so rejection of all bids is recommended in the best interest of the authority. This requirement contract will be rebid. Okay. Item 9, we are requesting authorization to ratify a change order to requirement contract number 1430344. This is a painting requirement contract that covers us at our South Jamaica and South Jamaica 2 houses in Queens. In order for us to be able to continue to provide painting services, we needed to continue work. We didn't have a replacement contract in place, so work was authorized to continue when the contract needed to be extended. This work was completed last year. In order for us to close out the contract, we needed to bring this to the board. This contract had not been previously brought to the board. That's why we're bringing it here now for a relatively small amount of $12,000.
I was wondering if that amount was correct.
Yep. It is correct.
So did we do full apartment repainting here, or was
these are this. So this
low rise?
So this contract covers apartment painting. So this would be for both occupied units and as part of vacancy prep.
So the question is though, did every apartment get repainted here?
No, just on an as needed basis.
On an as needed basis.
Yep. Yes, board member.
So does that work or apply to the normal painting? Are they gonna have special units to do one room, or are they gonna be special to do an entire apartment?
So, yes, so
You know,
these
the
are,
situation, the normal
yeah.
situation?
So the work is completed under this contract. We have another contract in place now. We're continuing to paint. We're doing this to close this out. These vendors are typically used to paint the entire apartment. Typically, less than 2 rooms is done by NYCHA painters. Okay. Authorization is requested to ratify a change order to this requirement, Satker Construction, Inc. for the maintenance painting of apartments, which did not require initial board approval for initial 1-year term with a 6-month renewal option to increase the not to exceed amount in order to fund services performed during the remainder of the 6-month renewal option, which commenced on January 21st, 2016 and continued through July 20th, 2016. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Louis Ponce, Senior Vice President of Operations for Support Services. I'll be presenting items 10 and 11. Item number 10 is a request for authorization to enter into a contract for heating controls for our boilers with Craftsman Supply Corporation. These are drop ship items. They'll be delivered to developments as we need them and also to our Long Island City warehouse. These controls are just to upkeep our presently heat and hot water systems. They will be installed by Housing Authority personnel. There's no service on this contract, just supplies. This contract is for $284,281.84. The reason it's coming to board is because it's a sole bid. Procurement Department did extensive outreach. They invited 200 similar vendors who supply this type of parts for boilers. 13 viewed them, but only 1 bid. Craftsman was the only one who bid. It came in within 4% of our estimate. So we'd like to proceed with this contract, although it was a sole bid.
Do you have any idea why out of 200 you got a 1% response?
They did contact some of the vendors who did not bid. They said they couldn't provide competitive pricing. The amount of parts is a little extensive, so they didn't. It looks like they didn't have all the parts available, so they couldn't supply complete bids for us. Craftsman was able to do that.
Okay. And you'll get back to me on the question I asked you previously about the asbestos issue.
Absolutely. Okay, so there's no other questions on 10. Proceed to number 11. Number 11 is request to enter into a contract with AMC United Incorporated. This is to removal and replacement of floor tiles in our move-out apartments. Contract is for the borough of Queens. So typically what we do when we prepare apartments for reoccupancy by a new resident, one of the items they check is the floor tiles. If the floor tiles are damaged to an extent that they have to be replaced, we typically tile over them. So when we reach 4 layers of floor tile, then we get issues. The doors don't open right. The doors have to be cut. There's might be a tripping hazard walking into the apartment and walking out of the bathroom. The bathroom typically has a ceramic floor tile, not a tile floor tile. So when they get to that layer and they need another layer to be put on, they will call us. We will test the floor to make sure, see if there is asbestos in it. If we do find it's typically in the first layer, the layer that was put in years ago, this contract will come in. They will abate all of those layers of floor tile, the 4 layer, and prepare the floor for retiling. So they follow all the rules, federal, state, city rules for asbestos abatement. This contract, I guess, said is for Queens only. It's for $2,957,353. The other way, the rest of the city is by boroughs on these contracts. So we have current capacity to run numerous months in other boroughs except Manhattan. I will be coming in September with a replacement contract for Manhattan. The contractor has agreed to hire 3 Section 3 hires, 2 in the title of asbestos handler and 1 security officer. Any questions? No, we'll get back to you, Mr. Gonzalez. Thank you.
Good morning again. Karen Caldwell, CFO of NYCHA. I'm actually presenting number 12 through 18, 12 through 16. I will present as one. 12 items number 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 request authorization to award requirement contracts between the authority and 5 vendors East Coast Petroleum, Inc., United Metro Energy Corp., Sprague Operating Resources, LLC, Rucci Oil Company, Inc., and East River Energy, Inc., to provide, furnish, and deliver ultra-low sulfur heating fuel oil with 5% biodiesel at various developments in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, and Staten Island. This fuel oil is used for the heating and hot water system citywide. In addition, the authority has requested the ability to pick up fuel oil directly from the terminal in emergency situations. Mainly these occur after hours and on weekends, and for those locations that have generators that need diesel fuel. The authority has requested the ability to pick up diesel fuel oil directly from the terminal. The term for each contract is 5 years, commencing on October 1st, 2017, and continuing through September 30th, 2022. The City of New York has mandated that all heating fuel must have a minimum of 5% biodiesel as of October 1, 2017. All of the authority's current oil contracts are for 2% biodiesel fuel. The 2% biodiesel will no longer be available, and the authority must comply with the city's mandate by October 1, 2017. If you recall, the authority recently signed 2 new contracts effective March 24, 2017, for a 4-year term with 2 new oil vendors. These new contracts were procured through a competitive bid process back in the fall. However, the law department mandated that we rebid these contracts as well as the existing contracts, the other existing contracts, in order to comply with this new biodiesel requirement. So with that, I would request that the board approve us renewing these contracts under the new city requirement.
This is part of the mayor's 50 by 81 NYC plan. Okay.
Correct. Okay, item number 17. I am presenting a request to authorize the award of the authority's general liability insurance program policies at a premium of $3,832,763. The policies will be provided by 5 separate insurers in 5 separate layers, with each insurer providing successive levels of coverage to reach the program limit. The insurance companies are Gemini Insurance Company, Lloyd's of London, XL Insurance America, United States Fire Insurance Company, and Navigators Insurance Company. The general liability insurance program policies provide general liability insurance coverage for torts in the amount of $100 million per occurrence and $130 million in the aggregate above the authority's $1 million self-insured retention. The program also includes $100 million of automobile liability coverage above the $1 million authority's self-insured retention. $100 million per occurrence and $130 million of employee liability coverage above a $500,000 self-insured retention, and $95 million of excess employer's liability coverage above NYCHA separately purchased workers' compensation insurance and corresponding $2 million self-insured retention. The latter is not subject to this resolution. This is just about our general liability. The renewal program premium of $3,832,763 is $118,537, or 3% less than the expiring program premium. All policies will have a 1-year term commencing on August 1st, 2017, and continuing through July 31st, 2018. With that, I request your approval to award the renewal of the general liability insurance program as I just described.
So just a couple questions. So is this consistent with insurance that we've had previously?
Yes.
And I assume this is, we got to this program with the help of an insurance consultant. I think we've talked about that before. We have an insurance consultant. And any comments you can share about the insurance consultant's view? I mean, it's this program? I mean, I think it's hard for a lot of us to say whether this is appropriate or not. So if there's any additional commentary you can provide to help us understand.
Well, this is an annual policy, so
Yeah.
we will be, we come back every year with it. We have a self-insured program to a certain retention level. We have found that is the most economic. In fact, we can't get insurance down to $0. We have to have some self-insured retention. And when you have a program like that, it's mandated by HUD that you have an actuary involved in helping you estimate how much you put in the self-insured reserve and so forth. And so we are always looking on a continuous basis, how much we should have in that self-insured retention and where we can get a cheaper coverage. Coverage, in fact, if you look at what I've brought before the board over the last couple of years, each year, because as we get further away from Sandy and other big insurance events, we're finding savings from our insurance premiums, and so that's coming down. So, we are, in each case, we try to expand what we are covered for, reduce what our self or what our deductible, what you would know as deductible would be. We've been very successful. And again, this is $118,000 less than what we paid last year for, what is essentially, better coverage.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 18, I am requesting authorization for the authority's $25 million public officials liability insurance policy to Illinois National Insurance Company, a member company of American International Group, or AIG, which is in excess of the authority's self-insured retention of $500,000. The policy will also include a $12.5 million sublimit for employment practices liability coverage. POL, or public official liability insurance coverage, provides insurance for errors, misstatements, omissions, neglect, or breach of duty. The insurance extends to cover board members, officers, employees, volunteers, and members of NYCHA's audit committee while acting on behalf of the authority. EPL, or employment practices liability coverage, protects the authority for loss arising from actual or alleged acts and or behaviors, including but not limited to wrongful dismissal, harassment, and discrimination. The annual renewal premium of $249,980 represents a 0.01% decrease off of the expiring coverage. 0.01% is $20. A $20 decrease over the expiring coverage. The renewal policy will have a one-year term commencing on August 1st, 2017, and continuing through July 31st, 2018. And with that, I request your approval to award the renewal of the public officials liability insurance coverage, which includes employment practices liability insurance program as described above.
Again, you said this is an annual thing.
This is an
renew
annual.
every year.
Yes.
And it's consistent with what we've typically done.
Yes, consistent with what we have. Now, I have examples that I won't go through, but I have examples of, how our insurance has benefited us over time. Obviously, and this kind of gets to the earlier question. I mean, with Hurricane Sandy, there's no way we would have gotten the kind of monies that we're getting back to be able to redeploy into those developments had it not been for these programs. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Terrence Schwartz. I'm Chief of the Law Department's Employee Disciplinary Division. I'll be presenting resolutions numbers 19 and 20. Firstly, with regard to resolution number 19, we request authorization to amend a 2003 board resolution which had authorized an increase in the daily or per diem rate paid by the authority to its trial officers who preside over New York Civil Service Law, Section 75 disciplinary proceedings. This resolution would increase the rate to $400 for each day and would be effective September 1 of 2017.
Going wherever you're going.
this increase is to make sure that our rate of pay is more competitive, so that we have available quality trial officers to schedule and preside over our disciplinary cases. Therefore, the Law Department recommends that the members approve Resolution 19 and permit this amendment to Board Resolution from 2003, which was March 26, 2003, to increase the rate for trial officers to $400 per day. Are there any questions?
Yes, so they're represented by 237. No,
And these are independent,
They're
impartial trial
Okay,
officers who
that's right,
just
okay.
are essentially independent contractors.
and when historically have we dealt with issues of compensation with these group of?
Well, the last time was 14 years ago, and we're having a difficult time getting quality trial officers and retaining them.
And are we, I presume we're not the only authority that has some like this? Is this a competitive
That is-
daily rate?
It's actually, we did look at other organizations. The Department of Education pays trial officers $1,400 per day.
Wow.
So the rate is still lower, and but relative to previously it was $300 per day. So this is an increase, and hopefully we're going to be able to retain our trial officer panel.
I'm sorry, so you say we were at 200 and we're going to 400?
We were at 300 per day, and it's going to 400.
And it's going to 400. Okay. And do we think that that is sufficient?
We hope so. We obviously, if there's a continuing issue, we'll bring it to the board's attention, but we think that will make a difference.
So the delta between 1,400, did you say the DOE, and 400, that's vast. I mean, that's multiple. So how is 400
What are
compared?
we getting for 400 versus?
Well, we're actually getting, it's trial officers these are pretty contested cases. So we're getting trial officers who are proficient at presiding over the cases, and also proficient at writing as well. So putting aside the Department of Education relative to our trial officers, we have had some indication that they're not satisfied with the $300 per day. And what it is $300 to sit in the actual hearing. And also they also get compensated an additional $300 for writing. So that would be but they would have to do the writing at home, not during the day.
So it's really $700 a day. If we were to
Previously,
approve
it was
this.
$300 per actual for 7 hours,
Right.
$300,
Right.
which is about $57 per hour. And then on their own time, they would be compensated for the same equivalent amount for writing. So that would be, if it's $300 per day, it would be, at that rate, it would be $600 for presiding, being present and writing. And at the proposed rate, it would be $800, which is $400 for the 7 hours plus additional $400 for writing.
Well, I think I'd like to know sort of what the impact of this, if the board approves, what the impact of it is on retention, if it has had, and if it isn't, that would be important information for this body to know at some point. So you guys decide in 3-6 months to come back and say, everyone's gone and we've left it, we've had to rehire, or there's been a leveling off of some kind.
Okay, we hope to actually give feedback even earlier. Once we've shared this with the trial officers, we'll have a pretty speedy response as to how they and the way we measure that is by them making themselves available to preside over our hearings. So we can definitely share that information.
Meaning that we would see an increase in booking of hearings? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, there's two issues. There's with the trial, we schedule hearings for about 4 to 6 weeks in the future. And because of this rate, we've got feedback from the trial officers that they're reluctant to schedule cases with us because they may have other employers or other places they work that are more attractive rates. So occasionally we've had the difficulty scheduling the hearing within that time frame that's appropriate for us. And we hope that with this increase, we will be able to schedule the hearings on a regular, appropriate, timely basis.
Other questions? Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So the next resolution, resolution number 20, we're requesting authorization to amend a board resolution from 1975 as subsequently amended, which authorized the removal and other disciplinary action against employees. And specifically, we're requesting two things. Firstly, revising section 4A to remove 2 trial officers who are no longer active and to add 2 trial officers in their place. The next part is adding section 4C to the 1975 resolution entitled Trial Officer Job Description Requirements. And this is to ensure that our disciplinary proceedings conform to applicable law and practice. And therefore, the Law Department recommends that the members approve resolution number 20, which amends the 1975. Do we have any questions for this resolution? Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Deborah Goddard, speaking first to a real estate vote. Item number 21 is the request for your authorization to submit a request to HUD for approval to convey Hills Cooperative property and thereafter to convey. Forest Hills Cooperative was formed in the 70s. It was intended to be a cooperative with the shareholders carrying the cost of the ongoing operations and maintenance and capital repairs. That has not worked out. It's been a sort of a hybrid of public housing and a form of ownership. And so it doesn't get public housing subsidy, and we have been bearing the responsibility for the maintenance without the subsidy. The lease expired in 2015, and it was intended from the beginning that at the expiration of the lease, the residents would own the property outright as a cooperative. We've been working with the tenants since 2015. They've hired their own counsel, which was appropriate, and they, with the advice of their counsel, have decided to separate from HUD to become a mutual housing corporation. They are now working with HPD, and we're supporting them in terms of affordability going forward. They should be eligible for tax exemption with the new form of ownership. They also will be subject to a regulatory agreement with HPD because of the tax exemption. The regulatory agreement is a term of 40 years, and it can be renewed. Likewise, the property will be rent stabilized to the benefit of most of the residents there, and many of the residents will be eligible for rent freezes because of their age. So we are, and then when they own the property, we expect them to be able to leverage the property to make the capital repairs that are necessary. So we are recommending that the members authorize the chair, the general manager, or their respective designees to execute any and all documents necessary to submit to HUD an application for disposition and, following HUD approval, convey title for the purposes and on the terms described therein and upon such additional terms and conditions as the general counsel or general counsel's designee deems appropriate. Any questions? Yes, Victor.
So they are no longer affiliated with NYCHA.
They will not be affiliated with NYCHA. And we have, they've hired their own counsel, which is the right way to do this. And so we are supportive of what they're doing, but we have felt we needed to let them make their own decision. And with counsel, this is the decision they've made. Yes.
I do know that they made their own decision, but have we examined, just out of curiosity, to see the perpetuity of the affordability on these units?
Well, as I mentioned, the regulatory agreement standardly runs for 40 years, and it can be renewed. That's about as in perpetuity as you're going to get with privately owned housing.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Items 22 and 23 are the recommendation to rescind 2 awards and reject all bids. You may remember that several months ago I was here with a recommendation to award to Agit for a jock plumbing contract, and at the time I told you they had tried to rescind their bid. They had no basis for rescinding, And so we are going forward with the award to protect our rights and not set a poor precedent. They have failed to cooperate with submitting the necessary paperwork for a Vendex check. So we are now determining them to be non-responsive. We are requesting that the award be rescinded. I do note that this failure to submit this paperwork and the non-responsive status will be recorded by us going forward in terms of the evaluation of this contractor. We also are requesting to reject all bids since 120 days has passed from the award.
So the recording, will it end up on their vendor name tag, for
Yes.
example?
Yes. Yeah. Items 24 and 25 are the recommendation for awards for replacement of underground steam distribution systems to Merrick Mechanical. The first award relates to properties in Brooklyn and Staten Island in an amount of slightly over $10 million. The second contract is for, did I say Brooklyn and Staten Island? The second contract is for the Borough of Manhattan in an amount of almost $10 million. These are requirement contracts on an for replacement and repair of underground steam lines on an as-needed basis. We have good experience with Merrick. Their VNC is pending, so there be no award until the procurement department finds no issue to prevent award. They are proposing each 4 Section 3 hires for each contract. There are no questions. I'll move to item 26, which is the recommendation to award a contract for roofing replacement and rooftop structure repair to Roma Scaffolding for Cypress Hills. This is part of the Mayor's Roofing Initiative, a comprehensive replacement of roofs at this development. Roma has done a lot of work with us satisfactorily. Again, their VNC is pending, so there will be no award until the VNC is issued, and we find no reasons to preclude award. They are proposing 5 Section 3 hires, and again, this is funded by the city. Okay, I'll move on to item 27, which is the recommendation to award a roofing and railing replacement contract to Zoria Housing LLC for Tilden Houses, another of the Mayor's roofing initiatives. Zoria is a minority-owned business. Their VNC, we've had good success with them. However, their VNC is still pending, so no award until the VNC is issued. And then we find there are no issues to preclude award. Proposing 4 Section 3 hires, and again, this is funded by the city. I'm going to move to item 28, which is the recommendation to award a job contract for plumbing services at various developments in Brooklyn and Staten Island to Richards Plumbing and Heating Company in an amount of not to exceed $10 million. Again, general plumbing fixtures, drainage, gas risers, fire suppression on an as-needed basis, a job contract for 2 years with 2 separate 1-year renewal options. The VNC is pending, so no award until we find no issues to preclude award. Because this is a job contract, Section 3 goals are issued at the time of the task orders. Item 29 is the recommendation to award to Albiero Energy LLC an agreement for generator monitoring and control integration services. This is part of the Sandy program, is being funded by the Sandy proceeds, FEMA, and insurance. This is a system that will be cloud-based that will allow us to monitor all of the generators across the Sandy portfolio. It also allows us, if we desire to expand that ability to other parts of our portfolio. This system can integrate a number of generators from a number of manufacturers. And so it allows us on a 24-hour basis to remotely monitor for emergencies, outages, and send messages to staff. Albiero their VNC is pending as well. And so no award until we get the clearance from procurement. They did have a significantly high variance. We know that was due to 2 matters: that A, we're not getting the economies of scale we thought we would get. B, the software is more complex than our estimator thought. We did use an estimator out of CBI's Chicago office, but they did not get this right. And Albiero's bid on that component was within the range of everyone else. We also think Albiero understands the nature of the contract better than anyone else. The other proposers were going to receive about 75% of their fee very quickly early on. Albiero understands the length of time it's going to take to get all our generators across the Sandy portfolio up and going, and seem to have taken that into account better than the others.
You should,
So in terms of, we're doing a ton of work around our own internal IT systems, both to improve our own sort of intra-agency communication. Is this system able to easily integrate with our existing systems, or is this a new, we're going to need to learn how to manage and operate and maintain going forward?
I think it is new because it includes training of our staff, Chair.
Okay.
But it can be expanded to include our other generators as we go forward.
Right. So I love that it has the
Yeah.
ability to sort of be flexible as we get more sustainable and add more to it. And so we just need to think about what that long-term operating cost might be on the IT side as we expand.
so the goals of this contract makes sense to me. There in the write-up, there's it refers to a unique and unprecedented software solution, and that phrase gives me concern. So this is it sounds like a bespoke solution, which means a few things. One is that they're the only ones who can, once we invest with them, we're sort of tied to them. So I guess I wanted to ask the question first is so there's a level of risk involved here. Are there really no off-the-shelf solutions for this type of applications? Does it need to be, and also if it's unprecedented, then, who knows how well it's going to work, or, how so I guess, how would you respond to some of those thoughts?
I would have to say there is some risk in anything that's new. I think this is in fact off the shelf, and that's sort of been for what it's providing, and that's been our mantra. Like, let's buy something that, we don't corrupt it to what we need. We don't play around with it. Can we buy it and use it as the industry buys it? And they're well regarded in the industry. But yes, it's new. It's more new to us than to other folks.
I see. So this isn't, because my takeaway was that they are developing a new software for
No.
us. No. Okay.
No. Okay. That would be well beyond the risk we would want to take.
Okay.
But I guess my follow-up question would be, because there is kind of a longer horizon on its implementation, to structure the contract such that there is some sort of performance check milestone, so that 12 months in, we have, 20 boilers, and we recognize like it maybe isn't working so well, or it's absolutely amazing and we want to add more. Is there a way in which we can structure the contract so that it gives us that flexibility to both either sever, when we can do that anyway. But,
right. Performance, yes, it'll have performance benchmarks in there,
right. But just to
keep
be
an eye
married
to
for
it.
3 years and not have a way to kind of be unmarried would be helpful.
Yes, we'll make sure of that.
Okay.
Item number 30 is the request to reject bids for East 173rd Street for building entrance improvements. The bids came in at 55% over our estimate. We don't believe the work warrants that. So in order to keep the project moving, we will do it through an existing job order contract.
So the one question this one inspired me, so is that, so I know you and your team you have a lot to do. There's and contracts to approve and work to get done. Do you, so do we have a periodic review of our bidding practices to understand, like, okay, to do an assessment over the last year, 2 years, we were in 50% of the cases, our estimates were off by a certain order, and just to do an assessment of, okay, how are doing things the right way in terms of just taking a step back.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, about a month and a half ago, the capital planning group finished to look at that, and 75% of the time they were in the tolerance, and that's been their objective. And in terms of other agencies, that's what they want to hit. So this one, I don't understand this one because this work is not that difficult. But I still think a lot of this goes to increasing our bidding pool. But yes, we do take a look back. And
Yeah.
right now, we've hit our goal for how well we're coming in on estimating.
And what is the tolerance?
15%.
15.
And we hit that 75% of the time.
Yeah. Item 31, it relates to a change order to Corden Construction Company, approval of a change order in the amount of almost $93,000. This relates to the work going Sandy recovery work at Coney Island. There happens to be a conflict between the placement of the temporary boiler and where we need to permanent construction work, a line for the electric box. So we need to move the permanent boiler for a bit, replace it, and it results in a change order, understandably. Item 32 is another change order, ratification of a change order to Medzerbati and Associates Architecture LLC with respect to their AE services for Sandy resilience at Ocean Bay. They need to coordinate with the RAD work at Bayside, and they've had to do a little bit of design alteration and a little bit of additional services. We are recommending approval of the change order that is in the amount of almost $328,000.
Is the RAD work being coordinated,
Yes.
being overseen by MDG? Are there two?
No, they have to, as a FEMA required.
I'm sorry, is the FEMA work being overseen by MDG?
Yes. FEMA required
Right.
that we have that coordination
Okay.
through our FEMA eyes.
So this change order is as a result of, you said, needing to coordinate with the RAD work, meaning that there had already been a Sandy design that now FEMA. Okay.
Yep.
No.
You can tell by the size of the change order, it's not huge.
Well, what's the total contract?
The total contract is originally over $6 million.
It's not huge.
No. Item 33 is the recommendation to award a gas piping replacement contract for various developments in Brooklyn and Staten Island to DDS Mechanical Plumbing and Heating Corporation in an amount of almost $14 million. They've had satisfactory experience with us. Their VNC is pending, so no award until we know there's no issue to preclude such. And they are proposing 3 Section 3 hires. Item 34 is the recommendation to award an agreement to eBuilder Inc. for construction project management software support, and maintenance services. As much as I'm excited about all the physical work we're doing today, I'm extremely excited about this vote. We have been using the same software since 2004. It is out of date. We're almost at the end of our ability to make patches to it, and it really is not state-of-the-art. eBuilder will bring us into state-of-the-art project management software for CPD. It's being used by a number of city agencies. It's been used by the Chicago Housing Authority. Great reviews, very intuitive, very straightforward. We'll get rid of almost all wet signatures, very little paper passing between us. This will be a huge efficiency for us. Years with up to 2 additional 1-year renewal options. Their VNC is pending, so no award until that is approved. And this is being funded out of federal. Item 35 is the recommendation to award for restoration work associated with Sandy recovery at Carey Houses, a contract in the amount of $97,455,000 to Dobco Inc. This is for the comprehensive work at Carey. Dobco did do work for us in the past, but not recently, so we're very happy to have had them bid and be the low responsive bidder. Their VNC is also pending, so again, no award until we find no issues to preclude such. Their bid came in at 2.93% lower, so we're, in terms of our Sandy work, we seem to be maybe figuring out where the market is. They are proposing 42 Section 3 hires. And finally, for me, item 36 is the recommendation to award a contract for Sandy recovery work at Walled Houses to Novelist Tile Inc. This is for the comprehensive work at 14 of the 16 buildings, the 14 that were deemed affected by Sandy by FEMA. Novelist has been a solid performer for us. Their VNC is pending, so again, no award until we get the clearance on that. And they are proposing 22 Section 3 hires.
So when do you need all these VNCs to be approved so that we can continue our commitment of having all Sandy construction projects done and in the ground by the end of the year?
We need them approved
Yesterday.
Yes, and actually when we met with the mayor's office to go over our milestones, we mentioned that we could use a little help with getting some of this stuff moving more quickly.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just have a statement. I want to commend you and the team with regards to the Section 3 hiring. Seems to be building up and moving forward. Thank you.
Well, it's a team effort across the agency.
Absolutely.
So on behalf of everyone, thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'll be presenting item number 37, last but certainly not least. My name is Anne Marie Flatley, and I'm the Vice President for Performance Management and Analytics. This resolution seeks authorization to submit an amendment to the authority's fiscal year 2017 annual public housing agency plan. The PHA plan provides details about the authority's current programs and the resident population served, as well as NYCHA's strategy for addressing the housing needs for the currently assisted families in the larger community. The amendment includes the following: the PACT program at selected developments in the Bronx and Brooklyn, the disposition of land at selected developments for 100% affordable housing, the disposition of Forest Hills Co-op, and the demolition and disposition of vacant commercial buildings and land at Ocean Bay, Oceanside. A statement about NYCHA's smoke-free housing policy is included, as is the 2017 capital plan and 5-year action plan. The resolution also seeks authorization to submit the PHA's certification of compliance with the PHA plans and related regulations to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in accordance with Section 511 of the Quality Housing and Work Responsibility Act of 1998. The signed certification includes a notation which has been discussed with HUD about NYCHA's cooperation with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York's investigation into public housing conditions, which was initiated in October of 2015. Provision asserts that NYCHA is working to ensure full compliance with lead-based paint regulations, but at the time of the certification is not in full compliance. The signed certification, along with the amendment and board resolution, will be hand-delivered to HUD's field office by next week. May I open it up to questions?
So I know it's an ongoing investigation, but can you comment on the status and what, if any, often investigations help unveil interesting data that we can look to and it can help change how we look at things. And I guess, can you offer a little bit more commentary on how we're...
Why don't I jump in?
Okay.
And I'll take it. Thank you, Anne-Marie. So first, thanks for the question. And you're right, as a ongoing investigation, can't go into specifics, and our continued cooperation with the Southern District, has led us to review our compliance functions as it relates to lead-based paint requirements. Our conclusion is that we have not been compliant with certain aspects of the lead, and that is just simply unacceptable. And so what we have done, not only as part of NextGen, is demand a fundamental shift in the way that we do business, and that includes the way we address our lead compliance issues. One child exposed is one child too many. And the data here, I think, is an important thing to sort of lead with, which is New York City, still remains, our children have historic lows in, particularly children who live in public housing, are far more lower likelihood of being exposed to lead-based paint hazard. And NYCHA has to do better. And must do better, and we understand and appreciate the urgency of this. And so we are sharpening our focus on sort of 4 core areas of lead-based paint compliance. The first is risk assessments. The second is inspections. The third is visual assessments of hazards. And the fourth is reevaluations. This is an expensive and important work, and we're taking meaningful steps in concert with our colleagues at HUD, the state, the Southern District, to move us towards full compliance. The board will recall last month we approved a contract for a vendor to help us carry out lead inspections, as well as the doing of the work that would be as a result of those inspections. So we'll utilize these specialists to help us prioritize those households with young children, specifically families with children under the age of 6. And as we know, that is the population that the data tells us to most importantly focus on. We will focus on those households with children under the age of 6 and get into those apartments again, ensure that if there is lead paint-based hazard, that is remediated, and that there's an ongoing communication with those residents, obviously. And we will quickly expand this compliance work and actual work to do the items identified to the rest of the portfolio as needed. More to do in the weeks ahead, and we appreciate the board's support as we do what is a pretty significant, radical way of getting of moving to full compliance, and we fully plan and will and continue to cooperate with those parties that are in the middle of this investigation. So big push towards compliance, 4 major areas. That's what we're doing, and doing that really in lockstep with our colleagues at HUD and Southern District, and also communicating with those most, the population most at risk per science, households with children under the age of 6. And that is, really the focus of the general manager and our team, as well as these external specialists to help us do that work.
So it sounds like we have our arms around what it will take to get us in compliance. Is that a fair statement, or are we still assessing that?
There's still a lot of work to be done, and what again, in lockstep with our colleagues at HUD and with the Southern District, this is going to be a long and hundreds, if not tens of millions of dollars of work to be done. And so we are, making, I think, really important strides to move towards full compliance, and we'll have more to say, pending this investigation leads. Okay. Any other questions on the other parts of the amendment, the annual plan? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, 37 items were presented for board approval. Do I have a motion to accept the 37 items?
I make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the summer. We do not meet in August. We see you in September.